At the top of that folder, you should see a masking zip file. Go ahead and download that by holding your control key, clicking on it, and save linked as. That will download the file to your download folder, and then navigate to download folder to see it. Double click on it. It'll open up a folder called masking. Drag that to your desktop, which I have over here. If you double click that folder, you will see that there's two files inside of this folder. We are going to begin with the file on the left, birthday bash invite. And I'm going to drag that down to my Photoshop icon to launch Photoshop and to open up the file. We have three layers: a text layer, texture layer, and flowers. There's a couple ways of doing this, and I'm going to show you both ways in this video. The first way is we're going to work with the paintbrush. I have a feathered edge, so it's 0 hardness, and I have it at 1600. You can see it's rather large. I'm going to click on layer 1, which is my texture layer, and I'm going to add a layer mask. If you go down to the bottom of your layers panel, you'll see some icons. That's linking files. This is the effects where we had drop shadows. This is the layer mask. So I'm going to click on that. It'll add this little window or mask or alpha channel on this layer. You can tell I have it targeted because it has the little lines around it. If I click on the pixels or the image, you'll see that it has the lines around this shape. So you have to be really careful which one you're on. I tend to make mistakes all the time. One thing that you can tell you're on one or the other is if I click on the pixel image, you can see my colors turn to red and white, and if I click on the layer mask, it'll turn to grayscale. So be very careful about this, because if I'm on the pixel and I click by accident, and you can do that by, you have it in black and white, and you won't even pay attention. You'll go, oh, I'm just going to add this, and you may not notice it, but you're painting the pixels and you cannot restore that. So I'm going to undo that. But if I click on the layer mask and I do the same thing, hit my X key to make the foreground color black, and I paint in black on the layer mask, it reveals, or it conceals what's on this layer and reveals what's on this layer. I'm going to hit my X key and start again, Option Delete. You can see this is white and I've restored this. And that's the point of this exercise, is that you can edit this over and over again until you get what you like, a final result, because it does not destroy the pixels. It is just revealing or concealing what's on this layer and below it. So one of the tricks that I use, here's the X key to bring my foreground color to black. If I go way outside, see, I'm not even on my image, and clicking, I'm just going to get a little bit of that feathered edge. I'm going to show you an alternative approach to working with layer masks using the gradient tool this time. So there's the paintbrush and the gradient tool. So I'm just going to go hit my X key to make the foreground color white. I'm going to target my layer mask, Option Delete to fill it with a foreground color. Now I'm going to go to my gradient tool, up to this little options panel, and if I click on this, you can see that I have this on black and white. And if it's not on black and white, yours may be on foreground background. You can go up to your basics folder, and that's probably what yours says. And you can see it up here, foreground and background. This is foreground to transparent, and this is black to white. Target the little icon that says black to white. Go ahead, hit OK. And what this is going to do is give me a nice transition from gray to white, grayscale all in between. I am on linear, normal, 100, transparency. I'm not going to have it on reverse. And I'm going to just click, and you can see it puts down a little anchor point, and whatever direction I go, if I go up, I'm going to get something like that. If I click and go down, I'll get something like that. Or if I click on the left and go to the right, I will get a nice transition that goes from black to white in a smooth transition. And that's another really nice way of working with this layer mask. And then you can combine it with what I showed you in the last. I'm going to hit my X or flip it back, and I'm just going to go along the edge. It's Command 0, and there you have it. So I'm going to navigate to my text layer. Right now I have the locked layer, meaning that if I click on the image, all the pixels remain, the transparent pixels will remain transparent because they're locked. If I unlock that, do the same thing, you'll see I'm adding color to those transparent pixels. So I'm going to Command Z, click lock again. And what I wanted to show you is if you go up to the eyedropper and click on a color that is inside your image, it's going to fill it with a foreground color. Keyboard shortcut, Option Delete, will fill that locked layer with that color. So it's just an easy way of editing colors. I can click over in this area, Option Delete, click in this green, Option Delete, and so on until you find a color that works with your design. I hope that made some sense to you. I think this is a very cool way of working, both of these little techniques. Hope you liked them. I'll see you in the next video. Part 2 of layer masking. Navigate to Maine Coast PSD. Go ahead, double click it to launch it in Photoshop. Over on the right, you'll see that we have 4 layers. We're going to work with all 4, and we're going to add a couple others. To begin, I want to hide part of this layer 0 so I can reveal the sky beneath. So I'm going to go to my magic wand tool, and I'm going to target the sky, and I'm just going to go over here and add a layer mask. So you can see that I can use the selection tools also. I don't need to just always rely on the gradient tool or the brush tool, but I can use the selection tool. This is not what I wanted, so I'm going to go over to my layer mask, and I'm simply going to invert the colors. So I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, Invert. That will change the white to black and the black to white. And now I have exactly what I wanted. The next step is if you zoom in, I had this sort of wonky little edge that I don't love. Command 0 to fit in the window. I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to use my eyedropper and target on a color that is within this document or this image. Command minus a little bit so I can start outside of my image. I want my brush to be a little bit smaller, so I'm using my bracket tools on my keyboard. And on my new layer with this greenish color, I'm just going to kind of go across the edge. Now I still need to make a layer mask. I can create a new layer mask if I want, or I can also simply hold my Option key, target this layer mask, hold my Option key, and drag it up to the layer above, which will make a copy. All I need to do now, it masked out the sky and it has this nice edge, but now I can go back to my layer modes and find one that I think works really well. Overlay looks pretty good. So I'm going to put mine on overlay. I don't need to change the transparency. You can if you want. Work with the fill or the opacity. And that looks pretty decent. The next thing I want to do is I want to add these like little glowy stars down on the bottom. So I'm going to turn on this layer. I'm going to add a layer mask. I'm going to go to my gradient tool like we did in the lesson before. I have it on black to white, linear. Click on the top, drag straight down, and that's pretty much what I like. If I don't really love it, I can try it again. And I think I like that even better. I'm going to target my image, go to my layer modes. I'm going to go down, and I like linear dodge. I'm going to click that. I'm going to select that one, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing with this file. Add a layer mask. Go ahead and, you know what, how I'll start? I think I'll start with Option, drag this up. Replace layer mask, yes. That looks weird, so I'm going to go Command I to invert it. That looks kind of okay, but it's got that wonky edge again. So now I'm going to go with my paintbrush, and on my layer mask, I am going to paint with white across the edge. And maybe I don't love that so much. You can also take your opacity down, and then I can just sort of go along the edge and hide that just a little bit. One last step to enhance our work is to add a layer by going down to the bottom right, clicking on the little square with a plus. I'm going to fill it with a foreground color. Currently my foreground color is pink. Option delete to fill it. Then I'm going to change my color, and I'm going to add a couple little blobs of color in other areas. There's an area. Oops, I have to change this back to normal. Then I'm going to change it to another color. Let's try green. And that looks pretty good. Make sure you double check up here. Sometimes things don't work the way you think they're supposed to. So always go up to your option panel and double check. Mine was on a different layer mode from something I had done before. So now I'm going to go up to my layer modes, and I'm going to choose one layer mode that I think works pretty well with this design, and I actually think overlay does a pretty good job. So that's what I'm going to stick with, and look at the difference with or without, and I think that looks pretty great. So just remember that you can add more layers to enhance your work. Layer masking techniques using the gradient tool, selection tools, or the brush tool, and layers with color, and working with layer modes. Hopefully that helped and that gave you a good overview of what you can do with Photoshop. I'll see you in the next lesson.